31. Zoey fell, the freezing air rushing past her ears, waves of mortal panic and terror crashing through her nervous system, limbs trying to climb through the air, uselessly grabbing for purchase that she knew wasn't there. Just a few seconds. An eternity. Her last thought was, I'm gonna die with a hot dog wrapper in my pocket. And then, whap! Zoey impacted pavement that was much softer than she expected. Her face was crammed into something that felt like rough canvas, and then she was sinking, gently being lowered until she was resting in what felt like a gigantic hammock. A split second later, Armando landed 5 feet away from her and sent a jolt through the cloth that sent her bouncing. Zoey thought for a moment they had lucked out and landed on an awning, but Armando was laughing when she sat up and saw it was some kind of massive inflatable trampoline thing, which Zoey believed stuntmen used when jumping off buildings from movies. This one seemed to extend forever in both directions, covering the sidewalk and part of the street. It was black, with huge yellow letters printed on it that simply said, "Drop." A moment later, Andre, knees drawn up in a cannonball, landed nearby, sending another ripple through the bag. It rolled Zoey into the dent in the canvas where Armando was lying, and she rolled on top of him and giggled and poked him in the chest. "That was some real good bodyguarding you did there, buddy. You just let somebody push me off of a roof." "I knew this was down here. Otherwise I would never have let you get so close to the—" She kissed him, right on the mouth. She didn't even know she was going to do it until she did it. Armando didn't kiss her back, but was very gentle in the way he pushed her off. Very sternly he said, "Zoey, no." Okay. He sat up, trying to figure out the quickest way off the high fall bag. He said, "Don't be embarrassed. This is a very normal reaction when you have the kind of experience that—" She started crawling away from him while he was muttering his explanation and stumbled/rolled toward the edge, finding she was still 6 feet off the ground. A piercing horn sounded, and suddenly there was a rain of people falling from the ledges of the buildings along the park. They fell, landed on the bags, rolled off, and ran into the buildings to go back up and do it again. Zoey rolled awkwardly off the bag. Andre was already standing in the street, which was covered in a soft mat that she assumed was there to catch people who accidentally fell off the edge of the bag on impact. He had a ridiculous grin on his face. Zoey shoved him and laughed, and Andre put on an innocent look. "What, nobody explained to you what a drop party is? You ain't felt adrenaline until you've jumped off a tall building and seen the ground flying up at you. Arthur kept wanting to set it up around Livingston Tower, but that's way higher than what these bags are rated for." Zoey brushed snow off of her skirt while Armando attempted the impossible task of dismounting from the high fall bag gracefully. She said, "I'm all wet now." She said to Armando, "Take me back home. You need to get me out of these wet clothes." "Zoey, calm down, Grumpy Pants. I'm just joking. But seriously, these tights are cutting off circulation in my legs, and you may have to take me to the hospital if I don't get them off." Andre said he had 3 prospective ladies waiting for him back at the party, so he excused himself while Zoey and Armando made their way to the waiting car. Armando checked it from stem to stern to make sure there wasn't a bundle of dynamite strapped to the engine, despite the fact that it hadn't been out of sight of 4 armed guards for the entire night. Armando slid in first, and as Zoey climbed in the passenger side, he shook off his suit jacket and unbuttoned the top 3 buttons of his crimson shirt, revealing a gold cross on a chain and a square bandage on his chest, as if he'd cut himself shaving his body hair. As Zoey settled in, she said, "It's that tea, right? It makes you feel like you've got a fever or something." The second Zoey's door closed, she said, "Turn your head." Then kicked off her shoes, hiked up her skirt, and shoved the tights off her legs. She wadded them up and stuffed them into her pocket, along with her hot dog wrapper. "That's better. And wait, yes, I am wearing underwear. Whew." Armando sighed, pulled them out into traffic, and hesitated as if trying to formulate his words. "Zoey, I have a lot of female clients. This sort of thing, it comes up more often than you think. It is actually covered in training during licensing. The client is under stress, in a vulnerable place, coming down off a rush of adrenaline. They start misinterpreting their feelings. The reaction is chemical, nothing more." Okay, stop lecturing me. I'm blaming the tea all the way. I cannot continue with the contract if it is going to be like this. Even if it was mutual, it is strictly forbidden by our code of ethics." "You're right, and using the word forbidden definitely doesn't only make it hotter." "Zoey, this is not a joke." "I get it. You're a handsome Latin action hero. I'm a trailer troll with a raw eating disorder. Stop freaking out about it. You can surely resist the temptation of little old me." She shrugged out of her blazer. Even if I'm not 100% sure I can make it home before I have to get these clothes off, are these windows tinted? Just so you understand, this is the last we speak of it. Of course. Jeez, you're so tense. I don't think you were this tense during the actual life and death standoff. Silence, of the awkward variety. They crawled through the coagulated downtown traffic. After several minutes, Zoey said, "You know what would help you relax? A nice massage." 32. Zoe's butt was so cold it literally woke her up. She pulled her eyes open and saw water, and she had the bizarre sensation that she was out in the middle of the ocean, drifting naked on a raft. But she was in a bed, though one where the pillows had been knocked off the side and the sheets were knotted up around her feet. She raised her head, which weighed at least 50 pounds, and saw that the bed was on a circular island in the middle of a small indoor pool, a narrow glass walkway connecting it to the door. Was this some cheesy hotel in town? She craned her head around and saw that the wall behind her was entirely glass, looking out onto the snowy courtyard of the Casa de Zoey. She craned her head around and saw that the wall behind her was entirely glass, looking out into the snowy courtyard of the Casa de Zoey, under mid-morning sunshine. So this was another of Arthur Livingston's ridiculous bedrooms. There was a member of the house landscaping crew out in the courtyard messing with some of the Christmas decorations, and Zoey hoped the glass was tinted from the outside. She lay back down and waited for the pain to go away, or for her to just die. Whichever. Something black was floating in the water just off of the bed island, and she realized it was her underwear. Zoey rolled over and found she was alone in the bed. She looked up and saw herself looking back from above. The entire ceiling was a mirror. She looked like she'd been tossed out of a tornado. But she lay there, on a world-class mattress, listening to the sound of water lapping gently across the walls of one of her palace's many bedrooms, and decided that she could totally live like this. This mansion was a ridiculous museum to Arthur Livingston's deranged tastes, but what difference did that make? She could have the whole place bulldozed. She could build her own, and if anyone else wanted to mess with her, well, look at what they got. It suddenly occurred to Zoey just how badly she had to pee, and she wondered how many 100 yards away she was from a bathroom in this place. She glanced over at the pool water and had a shameful thought when her phone rang. The tiny holographic ghost of Will Blackwater appeared on her nightstand. Zoey frantically covered herself with the sheet, as if Will could see her through his hologram eyes. He couldn't. She grunted and let it ring through to voicemail. "Zoey, where are you? Come to the conference room. It's an emergency." Zoey groaned. She again thought of how ridiculous it was to have a house so big that you had to call a person to find out if they were even in it. She pulled the sheet around her and tried to sit up. She had no idea what part of the house she was in, though another glance out the glassed-in wall told her that the east wing of the house was visible across the courtyard, so that meant she was in the west wing, unless this was some kind of M.C. Escher house that existed in 5 dimensions. The landscaping guy waved. She wrapped the sheet around her and thought about fishing her clothes out of the pool, but saw that by the door was a folded-up bathrobe and slippers next to a silver tray offering a selection of fresh-cut fruit, orange juice, bottles of water, and aspirin. Carlton had done this before. She tried to do a juggling act with the sheet and robe that would let her drop one and put the other on while protecting some last shred of modesty, but failed spectacularly. Instantly, she had the chorus to Butt Show stuck in her head again. Finally, wrapped in a robe that felt as thick as a mink coat, Zoey emerged from the room and was immediately met by Carlton himself.
"Oh, good, you found the robe. I would have come sooner, but we were not sure where you had landed last night, and I'm afraid a bedroom-by-bedroom search of this estate can occupy most of a morning."
"Where's Armando?"
"I do not know. His understudy, the Chinese gentleman, is here."
Will called. "He's in a state. Am I walking toward the conference room?"
"Yes, Miss Ash. I trust you had a pleasant evening."
"Yeah, and, that room is kind of a mess. I'll go back in there later and just fish my underwear out of the pool and all that."
"No need. That task was always part of my Sunday morning to-do list. Will you be attending church services?"
"No."
"Very well."
"Did Arthur do that when he was alive?"
"He never missed. Whether he found spiritual fulfillment there, or merely a prime networking opportunity, I do not know. Perhaps that's where Armando is. Maybe he needed spiritual cleansing for something."
"Yeah, I never really thought about the religious stuff. All I know is Christians are lousy tippers. I used to wait tables at a Cracker Barrel when I was in high school, and that was the first thing the other girls told me. Don't expect tips from the after-church crowd. Bitter, fussy people leaving coins on the receipt.
The foyer is just up ahead. Follow the scent of fresh pine.
Got it. Look, the way I see it, two people walk in the restaurant, a Methodist and an atheist. The Methodist says, I'm not going to tip because I just came from church and I've already done my good deed for the day. The atheist says, I'm not tipping because life is meaningless and we're all just animals. To me, they're both members of the same religion because they're doing the same thing. Whatever little story they tell themselves to justify it is irrelevant. It goes the other way too. If a Muslim and a Scientologist come in and both leave a tip, they're on the same team. It doesn't matter to me if one did it because of Allah and the other was obeying the ghost of Tom Cruise. What matters is it resulted in doing the right thing.
I would say you have devoted more thought to it than most.
At the foot of the grand staircase, they ran into Will, who was hanging up from a phone call. He was still wearing last night's suit, which hadn't acquired a single wrinkle or strand of lint. Had he slept? She pulled her robe closed and said, Sorry I'm such a mess. I got high on magic tea and had sex with Armando. You have a keen ability to quickly answer every question I have no interest of ever asking. We've got a problem. Can I put on some clothes first? He answered by saying nothing and hurrying across the foyer, toward the mold room. It was the fastest Zoey had ever seen him move. What is it? Molech is about to make a public statement. 33. Echo was waiting in the mold room in a neon pink tracksuit, as if she had been interrupted from a morning run. Zoey asked her if she'd seen Armando. No, the other guy is here. He was looking for you. Okay, I hadn't seen him since last night, in the bedroom with the pool in it. Echo said nothing. Where we had sex. Will said, This is it. He brought up a feed that, at that moment, was just a black screen. Supposed to start a few minutes ago. He's keeping everyone waiting. Who? Molech. Maybe. No, stop. Back up. He isn't dead? We assumed he was until 10 minutes ago. His truck was run off the road by some Pinkerton contractors between Ventura and 12th. There was an altercation with his henchmen, but Molech got away. Got away? He was leaving a gallon of blood behind him with every step. I can't believe he even survived the truck ride. He had no arms. He fought off 6 Pinkertons with his feet, then ran into a construction site, had belts tied around his forearms as tourniquets. They went in after him, never found the body, but there was no place for him to go. We were confident that we wouldn't be hearing from him again. Then his publicist put out a press release an hour ago. We wrote it off as a hoax, but our sources are now suggesting it's not. Echo said, It would actually be an inspiring story of survival, if he wasn't such an asshole. Hold on, Molech has a publicist? Where's Bud and Andre? Will said, They spent all night sorting through blink feeds from around the neighborhood to see if there's a glimpse of Molech somewhere. They wound up finding some kids who claimed they gave him a ride home. Probably a long shot, though. Those are usually just boasts the Team Molech types tell each other. Wu appeared at the door. Miss Ash, we met last night. I don't know if you, remember. Yes, Wu, the sword guy. Armando asked me to. Will shushed everyone. The feed blinked to life. It was a man in a hospital bed, a nearly unrecognizable Molech, so pale that Zoey thought he looked like he'd been gang-bitten by vampires. His handless stumps were now thick clubs of stained gauze. At the sight of him, 3 different people in the conference room spat 3 different curses. Zoey was proud that hers was the most profane. Zoey whispered, So, he is in a hospital. Can we find out which one? Go pull his plug? Echo said, We've been watching every hospital within driving distance since last night. He didn't check into any of them. He didn't charter a flight either. The camera settled on Molech's pale face.
First of all,
he said,
I want to say that was a lovely funeral last night, and I'm sure Arthur Livingston would be pleased if he weren't burning in hell right now. Second of all, I want to thank the Livingston crew for the new hands. See, I had been wanting to add robot hands for months now, and they've finally given me an excuse to stop procrastinating and get it done. As my dad always said, you can use space-age technology to give your joints and muscles godlike strength, but you can't punch through a wall if your fragile little hand bones are going to get turned to powder on impact. The new ones are titanium. We're going to fit them right after I'm finished with my message here, and then I'm going to go see what it's like to be jerked off by a robot. And third of all, I want to show you something. Zoey Ash, if you're out there, pay attention. This is live. The feed switched. They were now looking at the interior of a car, 2 gloved hands on the steering wheel, the feed from a glasses camera.
A coffee cup was raised up to the bottom of the screen. As the driver drank, he turned toward his passenger. Sitting there in the passenger seat, visible above the curved white rim of the cup, was Zoey's mother. Zoey heard herself say, "No." Molech said, "Say hi to your mom. She and the craziest bastard in my employ are currently driving together toward an undisclosed location in Colorado, where I assure you the local bumpkin cops will not find them. Now, don't be alarmed. My man is not going to kill her. He's just going to temporarily paralyze her with a spinal block. Then he's going to nail her into a box and put a live cam in there. Then he's going to bury that box. I'm going to broadcast that coffin feed round the clock for you and the whole world to watch. When I get you, and I will get you, I'm going to lock you in a room and put that feed on every wall. You'll get to see the moment your mother regains control of her limbs, and then the moment she realizes she's been buried alive. You'll watch her scream and claw and cry and beg for hours, until she slowly runs out of energy and air and hope. You'll wake up to it. You'll go to sleep to it. Day after day, week after week. You'll watch her die. Then you'll watch her skin turn gray as the fluids ooze out. You'll watch as the maggots turn up, first in her nose, in her eyes, in her mouth. You'll watch the first face you saw when you were born slowly rot, lips turning black and shredding away from the teeth, eyelids eaten away to reveal that blank stare, forever frozen in that awesome last moment of panic." Zoey screamed, "Don't touch her, shit spider!" Will said, "He can't hear you. It's just a broadcast." Molech continued, "So, the box goes in the ground one way or the other. The only question is who goes in it. You got 2 hours until we nail her in. 2 hours to bring me the gold, and that's only because I gotta take an hour to install my new hands and give them a test drive, if you know what I mean. My people will meet you in the lobby of Livingston Tower. If you bring security, we'll know immediately, and the clock on your mother instantly winds to 0. If you hand over the gold, my man will walk away from your mom. We'll take you into custody, sew your filthy mouth shut, and let my fans vote on what to do with your various holes before we put you in the ground instead. Remember, you brought this on yourself." The feed clicked to black, replaced by white numbers counting down from 120 minutes. Zoey stood and dug her phone from her bathrobe pocket. "I'm calling Armando." Wu said, "Miss Ash, Armando has resigned. You, of course, are free to hire protection of your choosing, but Mr. Ruiz asked me to take on his shift in the interim. If you do not find my credentials satisfactory, I will take no offense." A message popped up over her phone, telling her the user had blocked her number. Zoey said, "You call him. You tell him the job isn't done. Tell him Molech is back. Tell him I won't show any boob, not while he's on the clock. I honestly don't think he will. Tell him Molech has my mother, and tell him—" She stopped, not sure how to phrase it. "Tell him I know the truth, and that it's okay. Tell him I still trust him." Nobody in the room knew what that meant. Wu dialed. 34. By the time Armando arrived at the front gates, they had already lost 15 minutes. Will was nervous. He showed it differently than other people, but Zoey could smell it on him. It was freaking her out. He was wandering around the conference table, doing a trick with Arthur's lucky one-sided coin that involved flipping it, catching it, slapping it down on a forearm, then lifting the hand to show the coin wasn't there. Then he'd pull it out of his front pocket and do it all over again, and again. They were all watching the replay of Molech's announcement, trying to deduce clues about the location. Echo said, "Pause it here. See how the oxygen tubes plug into the wall behind him? None of this is makeshift. It's not a single-bed facility either. To the left of him is a privacy curtain, like they pull between beds in surgery prep." Zoey yelled, "You just said he wasn't in a hospital!" Will shook his head. "Gotta be some kind of underground clinic somewhere." "Which," Zoey chimed in, "we already knew he had, because he keeps cranking out psychopaths with these rating gadgets implanted under their skin. He's probably lying in the exact same bed where he got his own implants done. So why don't you geniuses, with your degrees in billions of dollars, already know where it is?" Zoey screamed that last part at them. She waited for someone to tell her to calm down, but she guessed that wasn't the sort of thing to say to your boss. Will said, "Now you know why I was so intent on getting the doll-head guy back here alive that first night. Unfortunately." Before Zoey could retort, Armando rushed through the door and said, "What do we know?" Zoey said, "We need to get to Molech before he can hurt my mom. The good news is he's bedridden because you lopped his hands off. We think he's in a facility where they do their surgeries for the implants. The bad news is we don't know where that is, and we need to know now. Well, I've heard rumors that... Zoey rolled her eyes and interrupted. Armando, you're wasting time. He looked confused, but not as confused as Will and Echo. The difference was their confusion was genuine. I don't know what you're... Zoey said to Will, Armando has had the surgery, the implants. He has 4 little incisions on his arms and back. That brought silence to the room, which was broken by the clinking of Will dropping a lucky coin. Zoey wasn't sure what in that moment had alarmed Will more, that the near stranger in the room was now revealed to be some kind of mechanically augmented monster, or that Zoey had just figured out something before he had. Armando said, Zoey, that is not... Zoey said to Will, from the beginning he seemed strangely uncurious about the whole implants thing. Then, when I was in the car last night, he opened up his shirt a bit, and I saw what I thought was a Band-Aid, but I saw it closer later, and it was one of those skin patches with painkillers that they give people after surgery. I had to see him with his shirt off to make sure the scars were there, but... Armando was clearly trying to craft a response, but interrupted his own thoughts, saying, Is that the only reason we... Zoey said, No, of course not. Can't a girl have more than one reason for doing a thing? Will said, I'd argue that's the norm. He thought, then said, Hold on. You saw the radiant scars while you were getting undressed, but then instead of running out of the room and calling someone, you just kept going? By that point I was willing to risk it. Will, the statue of David could sue his abs for copyright infringement. Echo closed her eyes and groaned. Armando seemed to weigh several options before finally saying, It was 2 months ago. I heard about it by random chance. I had no idea where the technology had come from. They did a demonstration and started taking bids. The same day I got my procedure, a patient blew up in the recovery room, splattered himself and fried a nurse. I did some digging and found out we'd all basically implanted bombs in our bones. I literally only used the implants once, to swing that katana last night, and I held my breath when I did it. If I could have the implants removed, I would. I know now that Molech just wanted crash dummies, because he couldn't figure out why the stuff he stole wasn't working. It was a foolish decision in retrospect. The waiting list was full of crazies. Zoey said, I know, I've met them, but why in the hell were you in line with them? Why would you even want that? This is not the politically correct thing to say, but only a woman would ask that question. The chance to be stronger, faster, than the predators who come after my clients. I suppose it would be the same if you could get a device implanted inside you that would make you young and beautiful and keep you that way forever. You mean more young and beautiful, right? Echo said, What do your implants do? Just strength enhancement? Actuators in the elbows, wrists, shoulders, braces that extend down the back for stability, pre-programmed movements, strength, speed, reaction time, automatic stabilization to aid aiming. Told me I could punch through brick or catch arrows and could download Krav Maga for an additional 100,000. Zoey said, And you showed up here that first night because... Same reason Molech came into your life. I want the gold. Zoey growled and made a motion like she wanted to claw at her own hair. We don't have it. If we had time, Echo could program it for us. Will said, Actually, she can't. That was a bluff. Armando said, You do have it. Arthur told me himself. Zoey threw up her hands in exasperation. Oh my freaking God. When the hell did you talk to Arthur? 2 weeks before he died. He came to me. He'd heard I'd gotten the implants. Said they made their breakthrough. Asked if I'd volunteer. To be a guinea pig? No. He said the testing phase was over. He wanted me to become what this city needs. Zoey rolled her eyes and said, Another mechanized kill freak? A hero. She took a deep breath and said, All right, that's a whole other discussion. Where did they do the surgery? I don't know. They had us gather at another location, down in the warehouse district, and blindfolded us for transport. We were in a vehicle for 4 hours, but felt like we were driving in circles for a lot of it. Zoey cursed. Echo tapped at the wall screen, and a map of the city and surrounding suburbs appeared. She said, We're going to need to know everything you remember about that place. Armando thought for a moment. We went downstairs. No elevator, so a basement somewhere. Clinic was makeshift, but with very advanced equipment. Big stuff. They had one of those surgery machines that did the whole procedure. Looked like a robot octopus. So, a large building, a lot of floor space. Echo tapped. A spray of red dots appeared. That's every building and private home with a basement. She tapped again. About 75% of the dots vanished. These are just the ones in commercial properties with more than 10,000 square feet of floor space. Zoey said, that we know about. He could have dug himself an underground headquarters in secret. Will shook his head. He could dig an underground headquarters, but not in secret. Dirt's gotta go somewhere. You need to rent or buy equipment to dig, get trucks to haul out the debris, pay a crew to do it. Impossible to do undercover. It's one of these buildings, most likely. There were still dozens to pick from. Zoey said to Armando, if we figure out where he is, will you go after him? Armando took off his sunglasses. Even if I was still working for you, I'd be your bodyguard, not your mother's. This is in no way part of my job description. Not as a bodyguard, no, but as a superhero. Well, for that I would need the gold, and you do have it, somewhere. Arthur knew this, or something like this was coming. His will, all of that was done in preparation for it. He did not care about this house or the cash or the real estate. He cared about Raiden. It was his life's work, his legacy. He would have kept it back up in a safe place, and he would have made sure it was found its way to you after his death. You have it. You have to. Think. Zoey said, the vault was empty. I don't know, maybe he meant to and forgot, or never got a chance. Will flipped the coin, slapped it down, raised his hand to reveal an empty sleeve. She said, it wasn't even mentioned in the will. Will produced the coin from his pocket, flipped it, caught it, then said, oh, son of a... Zoey said, what? Will tossed the coin toward Zoey. She dropped it, then picked it up and looked it over. He said, press your thumb against the blank side. She did. Nothing happened. Then, a few seconds later, it made a tiny beep. A holographic menu blinked to life above the coin. Will said, we are the dumbest assholes on Earth. It's a solid-state drive. He had it embedded in the coin. He left it to Zoey. I kept messing with the trick and thought I was just getting rusty, but the weight of the coin is different. I could feel it, but just never registered. Zoey said, then why didn't Arthur just say the gold was in the freaking coin? Will shook his head. In case somebody else got into the vault first. It was a way of making sure that either we got it or nobody did. Nobody else's fingerprint would unlock it. He thought I would be smart enough to see what he had done. He was wrong. Armando said, give it to me. Upload it or whatever you need to do. Do that, I'll go after Molech. Will said, we need a piece of the tech to try it on. Do we still have Sazembacher's hand? Or Molech's hands? Asked Zoey. Any of the many hands we have? Echo shook her head. Sazembacher's mechanism was too damaged. Molech's hands were stolen out of our truck by fans who presumably wanted them for souvenirs. Will cursed. Oh, wait. Call Kowalski. Tell him we need the hyena. Zoey said, there's no time. Will said, there's 85 minutes, assuming he holds true to his word. But we have the gold, which means we have the one thing Molech wants, and, therefore, leverage. We don't need leverage, we need to... Zoey was interrupted when Candy materialized and said, Bud and Andre are here, and they've brought a strapping young guest. I hope he likes being the meat in a manwich. Andre's voice came over the speaker and said, got a guy here we need to talk to. 35. Andre and Bud escorted in a smirking 19-year-old who Zoey thought had trust fund punk written all over him. He had shoulder tattoos that reached up onto his neck, but they were top-of-the-line work he'd paid thousands for. He had his hair dyed and teased oranges and yellows to look like roaring flames. Probably 4 hours in the chair and $500 for that. The kid was restrained by a bulky pair of black handcuffs, the pacification cuffs cops use that give you a nasty shock if you try to twist out of them, and can be activated remotely to give you a knockout injection if you get really out of control. Bud escorted the guy into the Buffalo room, while everyone else huddled in the hall and got a quick rundown of the situation from Andre. The guy's name is Kevin Ballman. A bunch of Team Molech dudes followed the pursuit out of the park last night, trying to get it on Blink. This guy went on his feet and said he and his boys had picked up Molech a couple blocks from the construction site, dropped him off at his HQ. I think he's telling the truth. Had video of the bloodstains in his back seat. Won't say where they took him. Says he'll take that to his grave. Zoey said, so what, do we just beat it out of him? Will said, torture is useful when you don't particularly care about the quality of the information you're getting, but that's about it. You want a false confession out of a guy? Beat him up. He'll say anything. But when everything hangs on getting the right information... Will mulled this over for a moment and said to Andre, there's a stack of metal munitions cases in the hall that Armando's people left behind last night. Empty one of them, and go get Arthur's Buddha off his nightstand. Andre turned and jogged off to go fill this order, without a single question or so much as a raised eyebrow. When the suits filed into the salon, the captive was standing near the fireplace, examining the buffalo head, which was still wearing its stupid Santa hat and beard. Zoey wondered, not for the first time, if in the next room over she'd find the rest of the creature's body jutting out from the wall. Kevin's face showed just the slightest alarm when presented with the phalanx of suits that fanned out before him. Zoey knew the feeling. Here's the dead-eyed Will Blackwater in a suit that looked forged from cast iron, the massive Andre in a charcoal pinstripe suit with a purple shirt and black tie, and Bud looking like he just returned from a tour of his plantation. Then there was Echo Lean, now in a stern black pantsuit and narrow librarian glasses, and finally Zoey, who was wearing a faded red t-shirt that said Idaho, Udaho, in letters barely visible behind the smelly Persian cat she was cradling. Will said, "Have a seat, Kevin." Kevin sneered and said, "Why don't you have a seat on my fun bone?" He spat on the floor. Andre walked over and shoved the guy down into a chair. The same chair Zoey had sat in fact, the first night she had arrived. So this was the interrogation chair. She noticed how low it was. Kevin was taller than her, and his knees were pointing upward, designed so that everyone would look huge looming over you. Will said, "I take it you know who we are." "You're the magician. He's Black Mountain. Over there is the regulator, Echo, and Cat Boobs." Zoey said, "Really?" Will said, "And we know who you are, Kevin Bowman, Molech's second in command." There was a brief moment when Kevin started to refute this. Instead, he puffed up his chest and said, "I'm not telling you anything." Will said, "Time is short. Fortunately, this won't take much time. Echo here knows torture techniques from the Orient that no human has endured for more than 3 minutes. So before I turn her loose, I'm going to ask you once and only once. What does Molech want with the relic?" Kevin looked nervously at Echo. Zoey could see he was torn. The easy answer in an interrogation situation is always, "I don't know," and in this case, that would be the truth, especially considering the question was total nonsense. But Kevin also really liked the idea of being treated as Molech's top lieutenant. He said, "Tell you what, you let me go, and I'll tell Molech to take it easy on you." Will sighed, then nodded to Echo. She strode over to the guy and ran a finger along his collarbone, as if feeling for some sensitive nerve cluster only advanced torturers know how to manipulate. Will said, "Last chance." Kevin did a disastrous job of hiding his fear, but still said nothing. Echo pinched the man's neck and twisted, in a way that seemed like it would hurt, but didn't seem particularly mysterious or torturous. Kevin growled and gritted his teeth. Echo let go and Will said, "Talk. Tell me what he wants with the relic." Kevin screamed that Molech would wipe his ass with Zoey's face. Echo stepped in and twisted again. Will shouted, "Tell me!" "Never!" They repeated this once more, then Echo let go, hustling Will off to a corner, away from Kevin, but not too far. In a harsh whisper that Zoey was sure Kevin could still hear, Will said, "We're running out of time." Echo replied, "I've never seen pain tolerance like this. It's unreal. We could do this for weeks and he'd never break." Will sighed, exasperated. He cursed and said, "We don't have a choice. Give him the relic." Andre looked alarmed and said, "You sure?" "Damn it, we're out of options." Andre hustled out of the room. He walked back in with the case Will had sent him after. It looked like a heavy-duty suitcase, built to withstand an explosion. Will set the case on an ottoman in front of Kevin and opened it to reveal the bronze Buddha figurine they'd taken from Arthur's nightstand. Will said, "You win. Here's the Buddha. I assume I don't need to tell you not to touch it. You know how radioactive it is." Will closed the case. Andre removed Kevin's handcuffs. Echo said, "This case, of course, is temporary containment. Molech will have a vacuum unit waiting for it, but this will buy you about 20 minutes, so don't stop for a haircut." Will said, "You tell Molech we gave him what he wants. Now leave us alone, and I hope you're pleased with yourself, you sick son of a bitch." Kevin actually looked amazingly pleased with himself, if not a little confused. He stood, rubbed his wrist, and picked up the case. Andre said, "Now get the hell out of here, and you tell Molech Black Mountain will see him in hell." Bud had parked Kevin's Camaro outside the front doors, and the suits watched as he went squealing off toward the main gates. On the way out, he passed a plain sedan that turned out to be Officer Kowalski, the bald guy with the accusing eyes who had scared the crap out of Zoey her first night. He pulled up and emerged carrying a leaking grocery sack. He hurried up to the door and said, "Got your head here."